Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrskyi, noted the successful offensive actions of Ukraine's defense forces in the southern operational zone. During a working trip, he visited units and divisions holding the defense at one of the key sections of the front in Oleksandrski. Syrskyi emphasized that the plan remains unchanged, to work systematically, cohesively, and effectively in order to liberate Ukrainian land.
The situation in this area is difficult. The enemy continues to apply pressure, actively using small assault groups for infiltration, as well as artillery, drones, and sometimes armored vehicles. Ukrainian soldiers are not only holding the line, but are also successfully conducting offensive operations. Since the end of January this year, airborne assault troops and adjacent units have regained control over 400 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory in the Alexandrovsk direction, and over 8 settlements. Oleksandr Syrskyi, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Facebook.
The combat work of scouts in the Zaporizhzhia sector was shown by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. They noted there that the soldiers are destroying all enemy assault groups, as well as their shelters. Russian drones are being intercepted in the sky. Military experts are also noting the successes of the defense forces.
What we're talking about is that as of today, the defense forces have managed, at least we want, to disrupt the plans that the Russians had for the regional center, the city of Zaporizhzhia, and for the Dnipropetrovsk region. The Russians desire to advance deeper into the territory of the Dnipropetrovsk region and accordingly to prepare a foothold to set up the conditions that would allow them, closer to the spring of this year, to begin the corresponding offensive phase of the Russian Federation's strategic offensive operation, specifically in Zaporizhzhia. As of today, these plans have been disrupted.
According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, more than half of all recorded attempts by Russian occupiers to break through Ukrainian positions on the front line have been stopped. In the Huliaipol, Konstantinovka, and Pokrovsky directions, the General Staff emphasized that the situation on the front is indeed tense, but under control. As military experts note, the Russian occupiers continue to rely on so-called human wave assaults. For the Russian command, losing a quad bike or even a van is more costly than the life of a soldier. And for Ukrainian soldiers, the mission remains unchanged.
Hold the line and wear down the enemy. These are two parallel tasks. You can switch them around. But wearing down the enemy specifically means eliminating them, reducing their numbers, denying them opportunities, and taking prisoners. Yes, so there's a pool for exchanges. And of course, holding the front line. That's the main task. And honestly, we've been handling it well for 4 years now. 4 years. And if possible, that's the third point, counterattacking when the opportunity arises.
In the last 24 hours, Ukrainian soldiers destroyed 13 armored vehicles, 40 artillery systems, 2 MLRS, 1 air defense system, 2 tanks, and 136 enemy vehicles on the front line. They also took out 33 cruise missiles and 1,765 Russian tactical-level drones. Also yesterday, Ukraine's defense forces eliminated 720 Russian occupiers. The General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces reports that Russia's total combat losses since the full-scale invasion have topped 1,260,000 soldiers.
Our first guest is joining us live, Oleksandr Leonov, Executive Director of the Center for Applied Political Studies, PENA. Oleksandr, welcome to the broadcast and glory to Ukraine.
Good morning.
Glory to the Urez. Good morning.
Oleksandr Valentinovich, I'd like to hear a bit of your personal reflection, if you don't mind. It was a quiet night in Kyiv today, but I think many would say it wasn't really peaceful, because one way or another, for each of us, this is a night that divided our lives into before and after. And these changes, this realization of just how much our lives have changed, it's probably felt especially sharply on days like this. Let's start with you. A few words. I'd like to hear what has changed for you over these 4 years.
Obviously, a lot has changed over these 4 years in the sense that it really did divide things. It has split our lives into before and after. Even though the war in Ukraine has been going on for more than 12 long years now, the full-scale invasion showed just how much everything we hold dear is under constant threat. And during this time, I think each of us has personally suffered deep and painful losses, in the sense that either friends or relatives have died, passed away, couldn't handle the stress, couldn't handle the stress, and so on. It is for this very reason, quite obviously, that the nightly air raid alerts gradually wear you down both physically and mentally. And on the other hand, they constantly remind you that our country is currently engaged in fighting what is likely the most brutal war since World War II. And then there's the undeniable fact that the Russians named their war the it's actually very vivid and very uniquely Ukrainian in a way, in the sense that global blockbusters, Zivo, it's just like a zombie invasion, an invasion of the dead. And I feel somewhere deep inside that our country is standing on the edge of this land of the dead who are trying to subjugate everyone else. And honestly, the main feeling is that there can't be any compromises here. Either we manage to overcome, well, obviously, there is no second option.
Oleksandr Valentinovich, I think you'll agree with me that Ukraine's partners and allies have remained unchanged. So, in your opinion, how significant is Europe's assistance, specifically Europe, mainly Europe, let's not talk about other countries, but the European Union in particular, since the war is happening on European soil? How has this assistance transformed, changed, and altered the civilized world's approach to the aggressor country?
It's true. It's the European countries in particular that have undergone a tremendous evolution during this time, because probably for the first time in history, the European Union as an institution is helping not only with money, but also with weapons to a third country. And quite obviously, it is clear that Ukraine is undergoing its very own complex evolution as well. And the fact that now there is a serious ongoing discussion about Ukraine being fast tracked for admission, at least partially, let's say making a political decision first and then carefully working out all of the remaining details, the remaining issues, this speaks to the transformation of the European Union and shows that security is becoming one of the key priorities for the EU. And the fact that Europe has finally fully awakened to the reality and has not only started to acknowledge and identify the threat from Russia, but is also actively making preparations for a possible war. And the fact that Finnish President Alexander Stubb recently stated in a public address that we can guarantee security both for ourselves and for Ukraine only if we are ready to fight Russia. And that's just the point. Furthermore, consider the fact that the European Union has officially refused Russian energy resources. In fact, right at the beginning of this year, a strict ban went into effect on. They are signing new contracts for the acquisition of Russian gas. And already by the conclusion of this year, by the end of this year, there will be a complete ban on buying Russian gas. So basically, it all started with Russia holding a massive 50% share of the entire European gas market. And now it is finally ending with Europe completely refusing to buy from or cooperate with Russia ever again. And frankly, this is also an evolution that just a few years ago was almost impossible to imagine. And what's important is it is certainly true that Europe continues to provide unwavering support to Ukraine, despite the fact that the United States government officially stopped funding the Ukrainian economy and completely halted all forms of critical military aid late last year. But let's hope that everything will change, and let's hope that the United States will return to the big game, will resume putting pressure on Russia, because you were absolutely right at the beginning. I would really like to emphasize and make it clear that without putting significant pressure on the aggressor, it's absolutely and fundamentally impossible to end this war. Because if you give them any chance to recover their strength and catch their breath once again, then the war could easily spread to Europe and many other countries as well. From this point of view, Ukraine is now successfully holding Russia back from launching further aggression against entirely new targets and other sovereign nations. New victims, new countries.
Well, on the other hand, we have a large delegation here today. In Kyiv, the 4th anniversary is now being marked not in an atmosphere of emergency support, but as a geopolitical event of truly European scale. Oleksandr Valentinovich, just half a minute, but still, should we see all this as a symbolic gesture or as a signal to Moscow that there is no fatigue when it comes to helping Ukraine?
You said it perfectly. Strategic support. Ukraine is now an integral component of Europe's strategic plans for containing Russia, the long-term future of the European Union, and the overall future of the European security ecology. So these are no longer just symbolic gestures. This is a demonstration that Ukraine and Europe are together for good, and for Russia, there's no place here.